All right, welcome back everyone to our second lecture here on Christian marriage and family course. Any questions from our first class? Yes?
So,
to be of one accord, yeah, that's a good word. That they both are really together. Yeah? They are one heart, one mind, yeah, and one accord. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. Any other questions so far? Online, let me just check. Now, how can we prepare ourselves spiritually and emotionally for marriage before we even meet our future spouse? All right, Mana, we have a full chapter. I think chapters 2 and 3 will really focus on that. We'll get into the details, on how to prepare ourselves for marriage, and we'll go through, all these areas that we need to look at. So we will definitely answer that question in detail in the next 2 chapters. Okay? Yeah, we will do that. Any other question? All good so far?
yes, sir.
Okay, let's move forward. Share the PDF. Okay. So, in connection with the two becoming one, very important truth that we have to keep in mind is the spiritual side. Okay, and that's really brought out for us in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 14 to 18, bottom of page 5 and top of page 6. Can somebody read that passage for us? 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 18.
For what fellowship has righteousness with knowledge, and what communion has life, and what accord has Christ with wickedness, or what part of the belief goes, and what communion has something God with grace. As God has said, I will dwell in them and walk among them. I will be their God. And he said, and he said to God, do not touch what is unto thee, and I will receive you. I will be a father to you, and you shall be my son. Bless the Lord.
Thank you. So, it's very clear here, Paul is saying, he's writing to believers, he says, don't be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. So this can apply to so many aspects of life, but definitely it is very important in the context of marriage. Right? And very interesting, he's using the word yoked. Right? So you try to picture this in your mind. The yoke is usually used, in farming. They have 2 animals, and they put the yoke, all right, on the 2 animals. You'll never see they're putting a yoke between a horse and a cow. You cannot yoke 2 different animals like that. Horse is strong, wants to go fast. Cow is like little slow. It won't work, right? Or you can't put a cow and a donkey. It just doesn't work. So you put a yoke, it has to be 2 similar animals and mostly of the same height. You can't put one tall cow with a small cow. It will, it will not go. Right? See that picture is using. Don't be unequally yoked with unbelief. So here the focus is on a believer and an unbeliever. Because there is so much difference in the spiritual realm, and he's saying it's like righteousness lawlessness or unrighteousness. It's light and darkness. It's Christ and the devil. I mean, the contrast in the spiritual realm is so different. So, if a believer marries an unbeliever, in the spiritual realm, things are very different. Very, very different. So the probability or the likelihood of problems happening from this place, spiritual difference, is high. It's very high. Now, as believers, keep this in mind. Right? So the immediate requirement to say, I must marry somebody who is a believer. Yes. Now in life, we know there are certain situations. Sometimes two people are unbelievers. Then one becomes a believer. What to do now? Well, okay, and Paul addresses this in 1 Corinthians 7. You stay in the marriage, and you know, God is at work, and through your life, you try to win the other person to Jesus. Right? Now you're married, one has become a believer, you can't just leave. So now it's going to be challenging, but you stay as long as the other person is okay and doesn't want to go away. You stay and continue in the marriage. But sometimes things are very difficult. You know, when you meet some people, a good thing has happened. They become believers, but there is also so much challenge because the other person doesn't see things as a believer. Yeah. There are real struggles. Sometimes a believer knows this, but still will go and get married to a unbeliever. At that time, they'll make all promises. After I get married, I'll become a believer, whatever, you know, or you go to church, you come, all of that. They make all these promises, but in reality, you know, in many cases, I'm not saying all, but in many cases, it's still a challenge, even though they'll make all the promises before the marriage. So sometimes young people come and say, Master, I like this boy, I like this girl. Is not a believer, but he or she said after marriage they'll become a believer. So before marriage, you let them become a believer. We'll see. You know, because what happens after marriage? They say, no, I am not. I'm not becoming. What will you do? Okay? So let's see. They really want to follow Jesus, they can follow Jesus now. Why after marriage? So we have to be a little, follow the scriptures and also be practically, you have to be careful. There have been cases, and sometimes, for example, especially if there is only one person who is a believer in the family, like most times, it's the lady, right? She's the only believer in the family. So the family is already planning to get her married to a non-Christian. And those are real situations. She's the only believer. Sometimes, good things happen, meaning the family is open, and it's okay, you marry a believer, we'll support. Sometimes it's fine. They do. And that is happening. But sometimes, we will find one person where you have to get married. And it's very difficult because this girl may not also be maybe young in the faith, may not be financially independent, so still depending on the family. She can't say, no, I will not get married. Or so it's not easy. So what we do, it's okay, you just trust God. So what can you do? You can't tell your parents. Again, we don't want to force our faith on the person. We can't say, oh, you leave your family, you go somewhere, and where will they go? Right? So we can't force our faith, depending on where they are in their faith. If in some cases, these ladies, they're financially independent, they're staying on their own, so they can take this chance. They'll say, okay, they will tell their parents, I've become a follower of Jesus. I want to marry somebody else who also follows Jesus. They take this step. Some cases they cannot do that because they're still staying with the family. They still depend on the parents. They can't take a stand like that, or if they do, it will just become very, very. So that's where it's okay, just trust God. And that somehow He'll orchestrate something for you. And there's some amazing testimonies where even though the person she got married into was not a Christian, not a believer, she just continued in her faith quietly. And after some time, God worked something where that person came to faith in, and then the whole family started following Jesus. And then the children were brought up in the faith. So some I'm not saying every time it happens like this, but sometimes we've seen this. That where the girl is like almost like a helpless place, right? Where depending on the family and all that. So what I'm saying is, to the best that we can, we must follow this, right? A believer marry a believer. But in life situations, there are all these other things that we run into. And we have to see how God wants to work, and just follow God. But the goal is, if we can have a family where both husband and wife love Jesus, and that's what we should do. But let me add to this, and we'll talk more about this in chapter 2. Even among believers, you have to be equally yoked. That's the other part. Marrying a believer, good. But the believer should be aligned or in similar spiritual level of maturity. Like you said, okay, you put the yoke over 2 cows, but you can't put over one tall cow and one baby cow. It'll still be lopsided. Right? It's not going to go smooth. So that's the other thing I want us to think about. So, you look at Amos, the next 2 verses, Amos 3:3. Do 2 people walk hand in hand if they aren't going to the same place? So to journey in life, you have to be going in the same place or same direction. Or Mark 3:25, a house divided against itself, that house cannot stand. So there's some situations we have seen. One was, there's 2 beautiful, very nice people. Okay. One was a doctor. No, both were doctors. Both believers. And they got married. But the husband was deeply spiritual. Very spiritual. Okay. So he would come home in the evenings. And after, dinner and all that, he would go and pray. But he would pray, like, he'll go away separately, pray for 2 hours. You'll think wife will be very happy. Husband is praying. That's not what happened. Wife got very upset. Why is my husband going and praying for 2 hours? Fine. So this is, I'm saying, believers, both doctors, meaning they're educated people. I'm not talking simply randomly. But something, maybe spiritually, and I didn't know the wife too well, so I can't speak too much about the wife. But I know the man, the boy, deeply spiritual. He also wanted to serve God. He wanted to be involved in it. He's a doctor practicing, but he also wanted to serve God. So very deeply spiritual. So I know the boy. I don't know the wife too much, but the wife was very upset. Why he is going and praying? What is he doing in the room praying? Maybe the husband should have used a little bit more common sense, right? You're just newly married. You pray, but take your wife and pray together or something. I don't know. And I'm just looking back at this whole scenario. But the point was, wife could not accept this. And that marriage only lasted 3 months. And very sad. I was shocked. When the mother came and said they had problems. And I said, how could these people have problems? Good, so nice people, educated people, believers. I didn't even see any sign of problem, but something was not right. So again, I don't know all the reasons. I don't know all the answers. But one thing I can think of is spiritually they were at. Spiritually they were not. They were both believers, but still the level of maybe maturity or understanding was not the same. The direction in which they wanted to go or how they wanted to walk with God and serve God was not the same. So that's where we will talk about this, like I said, in the next chapter. And to keep this in mind, to find a believer, not just any believer, somebody who is as passionate about God as you are, who wants to go in the same direction that you feel God has called you to go. Understand? So, because it is, you're uniting together spiritually. It's a spiritual union. So you have to think about that. And the last point, truth here. Marriage is a journey of love till death do us apart. So again, you're making a commitment for a lifetime. It's not like 5 years after that. No, it's for your life. Right? The scripture is very clear. What God has joined together, let not man separate. That means this is not meant to come apart. Right? Now we know in life something's happened. What we do, we'll talk about that later. But the bottom line, the main thing is God has designed marriage for a lifetime. Right? If you're joined together, it's not meant to be put abroad apart. And that's expressed in the vows that the man and the woman share with each other. They always say, until death do us apart. The only thing that will separate us is death. Okay? So at the end of every chapter, there are some questions. These questions are actually are meant for a couple who are preparing for marriage. So not all these questions will apply to you, but whatever, you please look at it, think about it, things that would be relevant to you, please think about it. I'm not asking you to answer these questions, they're just for you to think about, and you reflect on it. And also, for those of you who are not married, before your marriage, come back to these chapters and go through these chapters again, reflect on these things. Okay, let's go to chapter 2, preparing for marriage. Any questions from chapter 1? before we start chapter 2.
Hello, sir. May I ask you a question?
Any questions online, students?
Hello.
Annette, a question? I can't hear you.
Yeah. I want to ask you, sir.
1 minute, something. All right, Annette, go ahead.
The textbook says that marriage is a lifelong commitment
Volume.
until death separates us. So, divorce is
Check.
strongly discouraged, except in a certain
No,
cases
not
such.
yet. Sorry, Annette, 1 minute. We can't hear you now. I see the light change. Okay, green. Green, volume.
Yeah, okay. The textbook says that marriage is
check.
a lifelong commitment.
Check. It's not coming. Let's see now. Laptop. Renat, sorry, we're not able to hear you. Is it possible for you to type in the chat so we can hear you? I'll get your question.
Yeah, okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Let me get these captions. Use captions. Oh, turn on captions. Turn on captions. Okay, if you maybe speak and maybe I can see the captions.
Can I speak now?
Yes, you can speak, and it's transcribing you.
Yeah, the textbook says that marriage is a lifelong commitment until death separates us. However, some pastors have divorced and remarried, but still continue to serve in the church. My questions are: first, according to the Bible and this manual, is it okay for a pastor to remarry while his former spouse is still alive? Please explain according to the biblical teaching. And then the second, can we still be members of a church led by a pastor who is divorced and remarried? What should consider before making decision? Thank you, sir.
Okay. So there's a question online from Renat that he says here, I'll turn off the caption. Thank you for that idea. I'll turn this off. So the question is, the Bible teaches us that God hates divorce. And Matthew 5, Jesus talks about divorce, that if anybody divorces a wife, except for the reason of adultery, then if you marry somebody who is divorced, you're committing adultery. So that's it. So the question is, there are pastors who divorce and remarry. First of all, is that biblical? Is that correct? And second is, can we be part of a church where the pastor has divorced and remarried? Right? So how do we respond to it? I'll just share this. So first of all, we need to understand that in Scripture, there are different reasons for divorce. Right? So one is in Matthew 5, but we also see, for example, in 1 Corinthians 7, where Paul says, if there is willful desertion, that means if the husband or the wife, and in the context, of course, is unbeliever, if they desert the marriage, they abandon the marriage, then the other person, husband or wife, is no longer obligated to stay in the marriage because the other person has left. Right? So we call that as willful desertion. That means one of them has just abandoned the marriage. Then you can't expect the other person say, what am I supposed to do? You know. So that's the case. Another grounds for divorce. Malachi 2, when we read that passage, there is unfaithfulness, but there is also violence, abuse. Okay. So God says He hates violence in marriage. And so when we say violence, we're not only talking about physical violence, but also abuse in any way. You all with me so far?
Yes.
Yeah. So we can't expect. So when two people are getting married, they're not signing up to be abused. Right? They're not saying, okay, I will be abused and live happily forever. No. You're getting into marriage with the understanding that you're going to be loved, accepted, and treated well. Right? So Malachi 2 says, God says, I hate the garment that is covered with violence. That means if there is violence, so not only unfaithfulness, but also violence, abuse. So that in many cases could result in divorce. And then you can't force a person to stay in a situation where they are being abused physically or verbally in any way. Because that's not what they got into marriage for. Right? So the other person is not honoring marriage, and then that becomes a ground for divorce. So unfaithfulness, willful desertion, abuse, these we see are biblical grounds for divorce. So if a person, husband or wife, they abandon the marriage, you can't tell the other person, you sit and do nothing. You know, you have to accept it that hey, the other person is gone. What do you do? So when we look at, when we see if somebody has gone through divorce, you have to understand, what were the reasons behind it. Just, God does not like divorce. God hates it. But from a human standpoint, biblical standpoint, what were the reasons this happened? Right? It's not like two people woke up one day and said, bye-bye. No, something was going on, right? What were the reasons for it? And we can't just blame one person or the other. We have to understand there's a cause for that. Having understood that, then we say, okay, our God is a God of new beginnings. That means God gives everybody a second chance. Okay? So there are biblical grounds for divorce. Matthew 5, Malachi 2 talks about unfaithfulness. Malachi 2 talks about violence. 1 Corinthians talks about desertion, all of that. So on those bases, divorce has happened. Okay, it's not God's best, but it has happened. Second, there is forgiveness and there's a new beginning. Anyone. So we look at it from God's perspective. Is God a redeeming God? Is God a forgiving God? Is a God of new beginnings? Okay, so let's give this person another chance, a chance to get remarried. Not because we're saying divorce is okay, we're not saying that, but we're saying, hey, divorce happened because of so many other reasons. And what would God do? He would definitely give this person another chance, a new beginning. So, okay, fine. So we look at it that way. So we need to look at it through the redemptive eyes of God. God is always a redeemer. And so even if the person was a pastor, we don't know all the reasons why divorce may have happened in his or her life, and then the pastor remarries. Understand that God is a God of new beginnings. So to answer your question, we believe that a pastor, any believer, they experience divorce. We don't want to be a judge of the reasons that happen. We may never know the details, but we extend God's grace, God's redemption, expect God to give them a second chance so that they can move forward in life. And yeah, if they happen to be a pastor, that's okay. I don't think being in that church is going to be harmful or hurtful, as long as that now things are right in the pastor's life and so on. Having said that, I also want to be careful that there are some pastors who will divorce and marry like 5 times, 7 times. That is a big question mark. You know, they've made a habit of this. Okay? That's a big question mark. So while we want to be gracious, we want to understand redemption, we want to understand the grace of God, all of that. We don't want people to take things lightly, and there are Christian ministers who've gone to the extent where, I don't know, 3 times, 5 times, just divorce and remarry. After being, I can understand if they were unbelievers, and then they didn't know better. But after having become believers, now being in the ministry, they're doing this, okay, something is wrong. We need to address the problem. Right? In that case, we are, we want to walk in the grace of God, but we also want to hold people accountable. Yeah. So that's how I would respond to that question. And I hope that answers your question. Is that okay?
Yeah, because I see he faces rejection, and I think this is very hard for him.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Let's start the next lesson, and we'll see how far we can go. Lesson number 2. Preparing for marriage. So I think somebody had asked this question, and here it is. We're getting into talking about this. Right? So how can any person prepare for marriage? Right? And what are the things we can do? So when you think about this, in life, for many things we have full course. If you want to be engineer, 4 years to study. You don't just get up and say, I'll be an engineer. No, you finish, attend classes, master exams, and you get a degree or whatever. Doctors take a longer time, so on. So in life, for anything, we have to study. We have to prepare ourselves. Similarly, in marriage, which is it's for lifelong. Okay? It's good to prepare and do the best you can. And how do we prepare? Now, in ancient Jewish culture and kind of things that we see carried in the Bible, is that after a man and a woman are engaged, the man, at least for a period of time, he goes away and he gets things ready. Like he will prepare a house, make sure that he has a place to bring his bride to. He gets things ready. After that, the marriage ceremony happens. So they get engaged. There's a period of preparation, get everything ready. Then the wedding ceremony. Just example. And many cultures, it's like that. I know today sometimes the engagement happens one day, and 7 days later, wedding happens all over. No, that's okay. But generally, say in Bible times, in Jewish culture, there was a time of preparation before. The husband has to get everything ready, get the house ready, get everything. Then you come and you get married and you take your bride to the place that you've prepared. So there's a preparation. And also, that preparation time for the husband, the groom, he has to get, the place ready. For the wife, it's also her time to, get herself ready, to demonstrate her purity and her devotion to the person she was going to marry. Right? So you're thinking about preparation. I want us to think about these 7 areas that you can work on preparing yourself before you get married. 7 areas. So first is try to be the best you. Many times we think, oh, God, show me the right person. But you have to think about how can I be the right person. Right? You always say, God, show me somebody who is the right person. Hey, there's nothing wrong with praying like that. But you have to point finger to yourself. How can I be the right person? Okay? Sure, you pray and say, God, show me who I am. But how can I be the right? So my challenge is, you try to be the best you. And you try to prepare yourself. Right? Jesus put it like this in John 14:2 and 3, and he's talking to the church. He says, in my Father's house are many mansions. He says, I go to prepare a place for you, and then I will come and receive you to myself. So it's again carrying the whole idea of the Jewish thing, right? Okay, he's come, he's paid a price, he's betrothed, he's got a bride for himself, but I'm going to go to heaven, I'll prepare a place for you, then I'll come and I'll take you there. So it's that same idea, that same picture of the Jewish wedding. And then we know in the Bible, once you go to heaven, there's going to be the marriage of the Lamb in heaven. So he comes, he takes the bride, and then the marriage happens. So, we talk a lot about God, show me the right person, but think about how can you be the right person. So work on yourself. Right? In every area, spiritually, emotionally, every area, you say, I want to be. When you walk down the aisle or wherever you to go and speak your vows, you want to go down there saying, okay, I've done my best. I'm not saying we're going to be perfect people, we are not, but I've done my best to prepare myself for this moment and for this life forward. I've done my best. You should come with that. How do we prepare ourselves? One is our emotional health. So that's number 2. Right? So you set your mind that, okay, I'm going to try to be the best I can. Second, emotionally, I need to be in good place. Emotionally should be in good health. Right? A cheerful heart brings a smile to your face. Proverbs 15:13. A sad heart makes it hard to get through the day. So being cheerful in your heart, having joy in your heart. It says a cheerful disposition of joy is good for your health. Gloom and doom leaves you bone tired. It can bear you up. Just being a person of joy rather than, emotionally down. So, emotionally, to be strong, to be healthy, to be positive is so important. And we will talk a little later on, how sometimes these wrong emotions affect marriage. Now, when you say wrong emotions, what are some of the things we talk about? So this is on top of page 12. If you look at it, we've just listed some things. Outbursts of anger. Or being very depressed all the time. Of course, not this kind of weather, you feel depressed only, but whatever, just if you're depressed all the time, not able to handle stressful situations, being critical and judgmental, every time finding fault. Why are you like this? Why are you why you got on this side of the bed, why you, anything small thing, finding faults. Other person can't handle it. Negativity, guilt and shame. I give some examples. I'll read this list and then I'll share some examples. Insecurity, being emotionally dependent on parents, or being very self-centered, just everything has to be about me. Jealousy, pride, being very controlling, being manipulative, cunning, unforgiving, calculative, very stingy, deceptive, suspicious. See, these are just a list of some wrong kinds of emotions that people have, which can actually affect the marriage. Now, sometimes we think, oh, everybody gets angry. It is true, everybody gets angry. But sometimes, if this anger is not managed, it can hurt the marriage. So here's another situation where two young people got married. And that those days I told the person, please go to marriage preparation course. They didn't do it properly. So, I mean, now we can't say anything, but that time, please go to marriage preparation course. But they were so hurried to get married. I think they did 2 classes and got married. Anyway, what happened after marriage? The young lady and the wife now, she realized the person she got married to had a very bad temper. Bad temper. So they were went out for a meal. He got angry. I mean, they're having conversation. He got angry, took the glass and threw it. See, we all get angry, but we all don't take the glass and throw it. So it's like an extreme, it's an extreme case. And it happened a few times. And she got scared. Once he was very angry, he said he will push her down from they were living on an apartment, so like a higher, I don't know what floor it was. He threatened, I will push you down. She got scared. Who won't get scared, right? If you just got married, you're hardly 2-3 months into the marriage, and the person you got married to, you realize is having this kind of anger issue. See, we all get angry, but this was a little extreme. She didn't stay because she was afraid of her own. This anger was too much. Right? I mean, taking something and throwing, or threatening that he would do something, he would cause harm to her. How can she stay in that place? Now, of course, I tried to talk, but a person was not ready to go through get help. And it's ended a few months. Reason? Anger. Anger issue. Of course, now question is, why didn't you see this before getting married? See, that's a problem. Before getting married, everybody's like an angel. You don't see the bad side. You see only the good side. Very nice, very, because you want to be in your best behavior. You don't see some of these hidden issues. But when it comes out after marriage, it's too late. Very sad thing. So that's why we really insist for people to go through this, this course, but this marriage preparation, because in this journey, we're going to try to help people, address these issues, address it before you get married. Don't say, oh, I will get married, then I'll sort it out. Sort it out before you get married. If you have anger issue, learn how to manage it, learn how to overcome it before getting. Don't put the other person through all this problem. Yeah? It's not right. Why you want to subject the other person to your anger? So first deal with it, get over it. We all get angry. It's normal human emotion, but we learn how to manage that, how to control it. If you don't, then it's danger that you can hurt the other person. So, emotional health, we have to really deal with that, understand those things. Some other things which, would be is a dependence on parents, with whichever side, boy or girl, too attached to mother or father, whoever, and they're interfering. Sometimes it's for financial reasons. Like, so example, father, mother says, okay, see, after you get married, you come and stay. You'll save money on rent, you stay with me. It's okay, if it's also the boy tells the girl, okay, we get married, we go stay with my parents. But the girl has a dream. I want to set up my own house. I want to set up my own space. I want to do something. And it's a good thing, good dream, right? Any wife, girl would want to have, I want to have my own space, have my own family. I want to do up my house like this. But the boy says no. So sometimes what happens is before marriage, he'll say yes to everything. Right? He'll say, yes, I will take apartment, I will do this, I will do that. So girl is happy. Yeah, okay, I'm going to, and she's already planning. We'll buy like this, we'll do like that. In her mind, she's living in that house. But after marriage, he says, see, I need to save money. Parents have one extra room. They go stay. It's a big disappointment for them. Big disappointment. Because before marriage, he said different story. After marriage, he's giving a different story. Big disappointment. And Bella's run will continue next week. But okay, like this, there's so many, which come from a place of emotionally not being okay, being whatever, so many things. We'll talk about this. Okay, so let's pause here. We'll pick this up next week. We'll go for our next class. Okay. Sorry, I didn't keep time for questions today. We'll think about these things, and we'll take up questions. Thank you, everyone.